Hello and welcome back to another Godzilla Battleline video. Today we're going to be discussing unit archetypes within the game. As you'd see right before you, I've defined every character to fit into one of these 6 archetypes to define what they actually do in the game and what their role is designed to be. So jumping right in, we're going to put Hedorah in his spot. Hedorah, or her spot, I always forget. I don't know if Showa Hedorah is the boy or girl. I always forget. But anyways, Hedorah the poop monster is a fighter. What a fighter is going to be categorized as is a ground unit that wants to engage in combat in the midfield. Hedorah is exactly that. Hedorah always wants to fight with a lot of things around. It wants to do splash damage. It's pretty much a grade A fighter. It's exactly what you'd categorize that as. Next, we're going to have Burning Godzilla, who is also going to be a fighter. Burning Godzilla probably should be a tank. That's probably why Burning Godzilla is bad. The way Burning Godzilla is designed is pretty flawed. It should be a tank. It shouldn't have the long range. Okay, so let's talk about Burning Godzilla's range. He has long range, while the explosion doesn't even match that range most of the time. So most of the things Burning Godzilla is hitting that kill him won't even receive the exploding damage more often than not. It really logically makes zero sense. Burning Godzilla should be a melee character or have the range of Mechagodzilla, so it could take advantage of the fact that he explodes and does a lot of damage. It really makes no sense. The health on Burning Godzilla is way too low. Burning Godzilla really needs to be adjusted into a tank. It needs to have a big HP growth. It needs to have its range reduced. And maybe an attack. I don't even know if you need to fix the attack speed, which is 3.3, by the way. Not even 3.1 like I said in the tier list video. It's 3.3. But Burning Godzilla is not a good fighter. He needs to be reworked into a tank. This is one of the things in the game that I really think needs help. Burning Godzilla for sure. Next is going to be Kiryu, who's going into the assassin archetype. So what defines an assassin is something that wants to always be on the leader. It wants to be behind. It's a late deploy. Assassin's goal is to always kill things. So Kiryu's best usage for me is putting him behind the leader. Now, what does that mean when I say that? It doesn't mean you just send Kiryu behind the leader by himself. It means you strategize a whole push built around Kiryu being the last thing deployed into that leader spot, or into that push to go onto the leader. Kiryu's also a good assassin at taking out energy bases and could also be used to take out larvas. So that is what we're going to define as an assassin. Things with the things that can also spawn anywhere easily categorized into assassins because they go where they want very easily without any interruptions. Fire Rodan is going to be a flyer. The flyer class is going to be pretty much the easiest to identify. Flyers don't really differentiate that much in what they do. They pretty much are fighters, right? But they fly. That's pretty much every flyer in a nutshell. They're fighters, but they fly. Also, I feel like a lot of characters have a double archetype, like most characters in this game. So Fire Rodan is a flyer, but is also can be defined as a support. But it is more of a flyer than it is a support, so it's going to go into the flyer category. Same thing with, I wouldn't say Kiryu's really anything else. Maybe like an assassin fighter. Hedorah would be a fighter. It's pretty much just a fighter, right? But you get the gist of what I'm saying. So Fire Rodan is a flyer / support, leaning more towards the flyer side because it does do pretty nice damage. And the speed boost and heal isn't exactly what makes Fire Rodan good. It's more just a bonus that's added on. Next is going to be Helicopter Base, which is going to be a flyer. So I was actually thinking that there might be a 7th category for bases, but I really don't feel like bases are anything special to deserve their own category. And I feel like helicopters can fit into this 6 archetype as a flyer. That's really what it is. It just spawns a bunch of flyers. It sucks, but that's what it does. Moving on. Going for our first sniper, that's Godzilla Ultima. Godzilla Ultima is a grade A sniper. It's exactly what you'd expect him to be. Snipers are something that reach outside the leader and are designed to sit in the back and shoot from afar. There isn't many snipers in the game, but Ultima is for sure one of them. Anguirus, our first tank in the game, and probably one of our only good ones. So Anguirus is actually probably one of the only viable tanks, or close to it. I mean, G89 is obviously viable, but as far as a low-cost tank, there isn't too many in the game, so it's good that Anguirus was buffed into a usable role. What tanks are designed to do, and why Burning Godzilla isn't a tank, is they're designed to soak up damage without dying too fast. And Burning Godzilla definitely dies too fast. Anguirus is pretty much the perfect sum of what a tank is and should be. Batra is a flyer. I really don't need to talk about flyers too much. It's going to be pretty obvious that what the flyers are when they go into that category. Batra is a godlike flyer. You see him all the time. No surprise. Biollante is going to be a fighter. So Biollante isn't a tank because she really isn't tanky enough to be considered a tank. And I feel like when you use Biollante, you're not using her as a tank. You're using her as a fighting ground AoE damage unit. So she is going to fall into the fighter category with a little bit of tank mixed in. But she is truly the best fighter in the game currently in Season 10. Another assassin, Stealth Bomber. Stealth Bomber is an assassin. I mean, all it can do is pretty much what you want Kiryu to do. You want Kiryu to go on energy bases. You want Kiryu to go on the leader. Stealth Bomber, that's all it can do. You really can't make it do anything else, and it does it worse. So, yeah, I mean, he's just a trash assassin Stealth Bomber. That's all that really is. Moving on. Psychic Chorus, our first support unit, is probably the best one. I mean, Psychic Chorus is very, very good. I'm sure you've used it within the past however long it's been in the game now, pretty much 2 months, right? I mean, it's been in the game longer, but it's been trash. So technically it's only been in the game for like 2 months, since that's when people started using it. But it's pretty much exactly what you'd think a support card would be. You drop an AoE heal. It doesn't get any more supporty than that. All support units are going to be things that assist your team and don't actually carry. They don't fly. They don't fight, really. They don't assassinate anything. They don't tank for you. And they don't snipe anything. But they... Next is going to be Ghidorah, going right into the flying role. So now that we have a little bit of flyers here, we could kind of talk a little more about them. So every flyer is going to go into the flying role. You could think like, well, maybe the flyers should be separated like flying tank, flying sniper, flying assassin, but there isn't really any of that. You can look at Fire Rodan, Batra, and Ghidorah, all pretty different characters. Fire Rodan is like a flying, more supportive unit. Batra's a flying, more heavy damage dealing unit. And Ghidorah is a flying, more tankier unit. But they're still flyers at heart, right? They all still pretty much do the same thing. Just most of the flyers have a little niche that makes them a little more unique from the rest. Destroy a Larva. So Destroy a Larva can be classified as a support or a fighter. This is really the only one where I'm not that sure on, because ideally I feel like it's supposed to be a fighter. If we're talking about like the early days Destroy a Larva of Season 1 and 2, those things were designed to fight and fought well. But now they're so bad they'd be classified as like support, where you just use them on defense to help you with like a G89 or something. But I feel like I'm going to put them in fighter, just really, really, really bad fighters. Just bad fighters in general. Not good. But I still feel like they're fighters. They go out, they fight at 5 costs, and I mean, that's just what they do. That they don't really do much. I was also thinking of adding a swarms category, but I feel like swarms don't really, I don't feel like they're different enough to categorize themselves. So for that reason, I'm going to put swarms in these 6 categories. And I guess I'll explain it a little better through the later swarms, since Destroy Larva is probably the worst one. So we'll move on. Dimension Tide is going into the support. It's another support card. A lot of these effect units fall into the support category. You spawn them for however much energy they cost, and then they immediately disappear after like 1 to 5 seconds, depending on what it is. So Dimension Tide is another one of those things that falls into a more of a damaging support. There's a lot of strategy that could also be used with Dimension Tides, so it's really based on the player to how good this thing could be. Dorats is also going to fall into the support category. So the reason why Dorats wouldn't be classified as a flyer is because they're so cheap that you'd probably use them as a support, whereas something like Fire Rodan, Batra, Ghidorah, those cost a little too much. And there isn't really that many flyers that cost... I mean, there's 0 flyers that cost 3, I think, other than Dorats. But I don't think Dorats is... Like, it's a support / flyer, right? But I feel like it's more supporting than it is more of like a flying damage dealer, if you get my drift, and how we're categorizing these things. So I'm going to put Dorats in the support category. Energy Base, also support. Pretty simple. Why? It doesn't attack anything. It just gives you energy. It's fairly simple. Sonde, also another fairly simple support unit. It just slows things. G21 is not a sniper. He is an assassin. G21 is something that people might think is a fighter. He is not. So I've talked about G21 a lot in the past. The proper way to use G21 is to have him go on the leader and take it out. That is the best use you have for him. Fighting things with G21 is never ideal. So maybe you could think G21's a fighter, but in that role, I don't think G21 is nearly as good of a character as he is used as an assassin, which is like the last thing you put in the push, kind of same thing as Kiryu. If you watched my G21 video where I use the Biolante leader, and you watch the Kiryu leader, or the Kiryu video where I use the Godzilla leader, I use them almost the same exact way. I send out my whole team, and then I send out Kiryu, and then I send out G21. And it's not because they're level 5, it's because they're not good enough to get the job done differently. That's how they get it done. I don't think they're bad characters. They're definitely usable, but you need to be able to know what an assassin's role is. Assassins are probably one of the harder things to use because it requires very, very good play. Because if an assassin was OP, then you just win every game, right? You just drop them, they'd go on the leader and kill them. So assassins are a little difficult to use, like G21 and Kiryu. But that's essentially their job, is to go back there in the enemy lines, kill the leader. Kama Swarm. Okay, so this is where we're going to talk a little bit more about the swarms. So I didn't want to put swarms in their own category. So where does Kama Swarm fall in? I was thinking Destroy a Larva Swarm and Kama Swarm could also be viewed as supports. But I'm not really leaning towards it. I feel like they're just bad at other roles. I feel like Destroy Larva Swarm is just bad at fighting. It just sucks. And Kama Swarm is kind of just bad at tanking. So why is Kama Swarm a tank? Because it spawns 7 Anguirus. So in the perfect world where you spawn a Kama Swarm on a Godzilla 89, no matter what level that Godzilla is, let's say they're hacking, right? And their Godzilla 89's level 1,000,000. How are you going to stop that thing? Well, no matter what, it's going to take 7 hits to take out the whole Kama Swarm. So that kind of makes it a tank. Because I don't even think Anguirus... As a matter of fact, I know a level 30 Anguirus ain't living 7 hits from a level 30 G89. So that alone makes Kama's form a tank. Now, why wouldn't this tank be meta? Well, because the whole ideology behind this tank is to take single target damage, where AoE characters are usually pretty good. I don't think there's bad AoE characters in the game. So if they run one of those AoE characters, your whole Kama Swarm is absolutely gone in one hit compared to 7. So it's almost like a double-edged sword tank. It used to be good, hasn't been good in a long time, but I do feel comfortable putting it as a tank category. Let me know how you feel on that one. Now, Anguirus, same thing as Kama Swarm, except it's 2 costs instead of 5, and it spawns 3 instead of 7. But it falls more into the support category. Now, I feel like it's a support tank in a way, for the same exact reasons. It always takes at least 3 hits to take out the Kamas. But I lean them towards support because they're 2 cost, which is super cheap. And I feel like they're more supportive than they are tanky, because Kama Swarm's 7, which is over double. So that's a lot more hits. But the normal Kamas fall into a more of a supportive role. It's hard to explain, I guess. But I guess just because Kamas, the normal Anguiruses work better, it's just more supportive. Whereas, I don't know, it's weird. It's weird, right? It's hard to explain. But maybe you're understanding what I'm trying to say and how Kamas is a support and Kama Swarm is a tank. Anyways, we're moving on. King Caesar. Another weird one where King Caesar can be classified as an assassin or he can be classified as a fighter. And it's very, very tough to decide what he is, because he almost is both in one. I feel like I'm going to put him in assassin because the charge damage is huge, and it does, you know, I mean, he takes out larvas. That's what King Caesar is best known for, is popping terrestrials, popping Batra larvas. He charges into Hedorahs, Biolantes, all pretty well. And the leader damage that he can get off is pretty massive. Those chunks do matter over time. But at the same time, he's also kind of a fighter, so it's almost universal. We'll put him in assassin because we don't have that many in the game. But King Caesar is pretty good. Pretty damn good. King Ghidorah going right into flyer, same reasons. It's a flyer that does more AoE splash damage than the others. That's King Ghidorah's thing. We got Marcolite Cannon, which is going to go right into the sniper category. So Marcolite Cannon is like a sniper slash support. It's pretty bad. It can't push. It's really just a defensive sniper that doesn't even have that much range, and it probably should have a little bit more range. Or a cheaper cost, but it's pretty bad. Next is Mbaw base. That's going to go right into support. So unlike the helicopter base, the Mbaw base isn't really designed to do damage. It's designed to stun a bunch of things and just be obnoxious. So it's definitely going into the support category. Normal Mbaws, same exact thing. They pretty much do exactly what the Mbaw bases do. Spawn the same units. It's going to fall into the same category. Mechagodzilla is going to fall into the fighter category. Pretty simple. Why? I mean, Mechagodzilla's one of the most basic characters in the game. Just walks out there and fights. That's all he does. Mechagodzilla going into the flyer category. Mechagodzilla's niche of being a flyer is she has a huge AoE slow. Manila going right into support for obvious reasons. Manila is just like Mbaw base, or Mbaws in a way, but a lot better. Cheaper. Has more range and a stun. Missiles is a hard one because missiles would be classified as a support. I guess it'd be like a support assassin used to like take out ideally like Super X's on low health and energy bases, things like that. But it's going to go ahead and fall into the support category like most effect units are. Mogira is going to be an assassin just like Kiryu. They pretty much function in very similar ways and all have similar jobs. So Stealth Bomber, Kiryu, Mog all kind of have similar jobs. G21 and King Caesar are kind of the exceptions in the assassin tier, but for good reason are still going to be left in there. Now, Mothra Leo is pretty weird. So she's a flyer, but I wouldn't even say she's an assassin even though she has a charge, because it's not that much. I'd kind of lean Leo towards like flyer slash assassin slash tank hybrid. But that sounds good to people. Like when people hear that, they're like, dang, dude, flyer, assassin, tank. That sounds kind of crazy, man. No, it's not. It's really not. He's a bad boy. He's not very good. People have been seeing a lot more Leo play lately. Don't let that make you think it's good. It's the same old Leo. Same old Leo. Mothra going right into flyer. Mothra's little specialty niche as a flyer is she does a fat AoE burst damage, but the AoE range is very small. Rodan is a flyer. His niche is that he's just a very shitty flyer with low health. Moving on. Alright, Rodan's not that bad. He has high DPS, very low health, ends up sucking late game. Space Godzilla, grade A fighter. If you were to classify Space Godzilla, it would be like a fighter support for spawning the crystals. And the crystals in itself make Space Godzilla a little tankier because those are hits he doesn't have to take sometimes. But Space Godzilla is pretty much a classic fighter. Walks in there, fights in the midfield most of the time. Ground unit. It's usually how it's going to go down. Not tanky enough to be a tank. Not long ranged enough to be a sniper. He'd just be doing his thing. Bomb, or not bomb, but Train Bomb is support card. Just like Missile Strike, it's kind of the same thing. Falls into that assassin support category. But most of the effect units are going to be supports. Godzilla 89 going to be a tank. I don't want Godzilla 89 behind Kama's form. It just makes me cringe a little. I just need him in front. I need that in front of him. Anyways. G89 is grade A tank. Everyone knew looking at this video as soon as they figured out what it was, G89 was going to be a tank. Now, G89 is also a tank fighter because the man does massive damage. But the health is what really makes G89 stand out, so it's definitely going to fall into the tank category despite having that massive attack stat. Super X falling into the sniper category for very obvious reasons. Super X has the highest range in the game, has minimal health, literally just designed to sit back and shoot you like an asshole. That's Super X. Showa Gigan is for sure an assassin, just a terrible one. He can only attack the leader and energy bases, just like Stealth Bomber, just like what you want out of Kiryu and Mog. The assassin archetype, he just doesn't do it very well. He just got a buff too, so it sucks, but definitely needs a cost reduction. But he is an assassin at heart. Jet Jaguar is going to be a tank. So Jet Jaguar does have low health, but the whole shield passive mechanic with Jet Jaguar pretty much justifies him being a tank. He used to be the best tank back in like Season 3s and 4, but that has now changed. Because even though he is a tank, Super X shoots him once and he instantly becomes not a tank. But if he was to 1v1 Godzilla 89, or let's say Godzilla Earth, those first two hits wouldn't do any damage, which would leave Jet Jaguar in a pretty good spot at that point. Whereas Super X's first shot is going to take out his shields and do a little bit of damage. But Jet Jaguar is a tank at heart as well. Another tank, we got Kong. So Kong is also a tank, but is a horrible one. So there are really only two good tanks in the game. We could actually put the third tank. I see him right here. So these are the last tanks we have. We have Jet Jaguar, Kong, and Godzilla 54. All who are not very viable at the top. So Anguirus and G89 are really the only viable tanks at the high meta. So thank God Anguirus got buffed, because boy did we need a tank with this high damage meta of Super X, Batra, Mega, Bylante. It's insane. But Kong and Godzilla 54 have fundamental flaws and why they don't work as tanks in ranked battle. And if you notice a similarity between them, it's that they're both 4 stars and above 6 cost. So Anguirus and Godzilla 89 are great tanks in the high elo meta because you can level them to 30 and they can have very, very massive health pools. Kong and Godzilla 54 do not have that luxury and have very limited pieces. So for them to function as tanks just doesn't work. It's almost the same thing with Burning Godzilla. If you wanted to make him just a bad tank, if you wanted to place him in the tank category, he'd just be a bad one with lower health. But I feel like these 4-star tanks need the health stats earlier. I feel like they get them too late to the point where they're just bad. Kong at level 10 should not be a unusable unit. It just should not be unusable. It has like 3,500 health, which is a lot. But it's not enough. Because that's how much damage things are doing. That is not nearly enough damage or enough health to survive. So maybe they need to rework these 4 stars growths and have their health come a little early. Not their damage stats, but their health stats. So let's say like the level 20 to 30 growths for these units, the health should be lowered and it should be higher early on to promote more play from them because they just don't work. So that's Kong and Godzilla 54. They are tanks. Next is Gigan 04, which is going to be classified as a fighter. Pretty obvious reasons. He goes in, grapples to pretty much anything he could find, and fights it. Pretty simple reason. Then we have the Kid Ship, which is going to fall into the support category. It doesn't do any damage. It's just an effect unit. It's going to help other units. It's a support. And lastly, we would have Godzilla Earth, who did not make it onto the tier list yet. So Godzilla Earth is going to be Godzilla Terrestris here. He'll just be a placeholder. Earth is a sniper. Some might think Earth is a tank, but he's not really a tank because ideally you don't want Earth taking damage. Even though he has the massive health pool, you don't want Earth in the front soaking for you. You kind of want him in the back still, and you want to protect around him and keep his health high so if it goes down, when it goes down later, he'll have more survivability. So for that reason, Earth is going to be a sniper, especially because it reaches outside of the leader range. It's just a hybrid tank as well. But that is going to be the unit archetype video. I wanted to make this video just so you guys can understand unit roles a little better and to see how they are defined, as you can see here. And I feel like across these 6 roles, these units do kind of similar jobs to each other. So I feel like this archetype works. These 6 archetypes work in accordance to the game currently. Let me know if there maybe is a 7th archetype you add. Maybe if it's swarms, maybe bases are different enough that you'd want to add those. Or let me know if you think some things are wrong. Maybe you think King Caesar should be a fighter. Maybe you think Jaguar isn't tanky enough. Maybe you think Dorat should be a flyer. Things like that. But thank you guys for watching. And I will see you in the next one.